Well, we knew it was coming. We thought we knew it was coming, and it seems, at least, to be almost official with the Milwaukee Bucks and Doc Rivers. We'll talk about it as we hang out with you here on this Wednesday. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast alongside Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I am Devon Givens. Bree producing all of you out there on this Wednesday, and we spoke so much about Joel Embiid on Tuesday and Monday, of course, after the 70-point game. But then Milwaukee firing Adrian Griffin just interrupted my conversation as I'm talking about Joel and how fantastic he was.
I interrupted your conversation.
But it wasn't your fault. It was their fault for doing so. But it gave us, of course, something to talk about, something to look forward to, because in all actuality, as Kyle said at the end of the show on Tuesday, Derek talking about it before we even came on here today. Look, as much as we talk about Doc Rivers, Glenn Rivers, whatever you want to call him, he's a good coach. And what he might do is just bring a little bit more, we don't know stability yet, but at least some respectability to the sideline where Adrian Griffin, it appears, has not done that. Get the respect from the players, all of that. So we'll dive into that. We'll talk about the midway point of the season for the Sixers, 29-13 through 42 games. Trade deadline, of course, coming up. Injuries, so much more. Kyle, what's going on, man?
I just feel like, and I'm not trying to spoil anything from Breaking Bad, but when Aaron Paul's character on the show goes, he can't keep getting away with this. Like that's me looking at Doc Rivers getting another high-profile coaching job, coaching actually two probably first ballot Hall of Famers in Giannis and Dame. And look, to your point, Devon, you called him a good coach. I would say this. I think if we're talking about the immediate aftermath of firing Griffin, hiring Doc, I think you could certainly make a case that there will be some stability now and that Doc will come in and the things that they should have been getting right already, that I know there were players or stories out there that they've had some players meetings with Griffin between Giannis, Dame, Brook Lopez, and Chris Middleton, where they're like, hey, what the hell's going on here? Why are we playing this coverage? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And I don't think they'll have to have too many of those type of conversations with Doc, right? Like he'll come in, he'll sit down with the guys, with whoever his staff is. I know there's a rumor out there Dave Yeager might join him again. And they'll concoct something that resembles a coherent plan for the regular season. But as we discussed at great length on Tuesday's show, this is all about, what does this do in the playoffs, or what have they accomplished from a playoff perspective with what they've done since last season ended. And historically, the problem has been the same problems that Doc has had with the Sixers, with the Clippers, at times with the Celtics, even though he broke through, won a title with them in 2008. And I don't know that this materially changes anything for the Sixers. Like, I still believe they have a coaching advantage, like I did when Adrian Griffin was the coach. Maybe it's a smaller one, but I still believe it's a meaningful one. And when you add that on top of Joel Embiid's playing at a higher level than anybody else, and the Sixers team is great on both sides of the ball right now, I don't fear the Milwaukee Bucks, and I don't fear them anymore with Doc Rivers coaching the team than with Griffin.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think on the one hand, I think Doc is an upgrade on Griffin. The question is whether it's a material upgrade when it matters. I think there's so much low-hanging fruit that the Bucks can do to improve their team and make them a little more competitive defensively, that just somebody who can get a base level scheme in and that makes logical sense will make them a better team. And look, I know they're, what are they, 30-13?
30-13.
30-13. They've done that with the 21st ranked defense, so it's been poor. And they've done that against the second easiest strength of schedule in the entire league. We've been talking about it a bunch where they're about to face a much tougher schedule. I thought that defense was going to get even worse. So if they just put in a scheme that makes logical sense, I think they'll be more, better equipped to handle both the upcoming tough stretch of play and also the playoffs than they previously were. The question is whether or not Doc Rivers and his playoff deficiencies are worth going through the mid-season upheaval that they are putting themselves through. I think there's almost no question that Doc, like I said, will make them better in the short term and make their, utilize the scheme that makes more sense. But I agree with Kyle that when you go into a coaching series, we all know the track record. We all saw the track record firsthand. I remember talking to Jovan Buha, who covered the Clippers back then. Now he covers the Lakers for The Athletic. We had him on our podcast at the time and being like, look, basically think that I feel like Doc gets a real good base level scheme that gets the most out of your stars. But once you have to adapt from that scheme in the playoffs, he struggles. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly it. And we all, that was coming into the Sixers tenure. We then saw 3 years of having that verified. I think we all have a pretty good idea of what Doc brings and what he doesn't. So yes, I think like on the one hand, the Bucks had to correct the mistake they made last summer. Like I think Griffin was unquestionably a mistake. He wasn't prepared for the moment. The players didn't like him. His schemes didn't make sense. He didn't seem like he was willing to adjust any of that. They had to make a change. So I think they will get better almost by default. The question is whether or not, they'll get better. Was this the right move to make? Was there still more meat on the bones they could have gotten by hiring a different coach who had a better chance of succeeding in the playoffs? I think that's probably true. I think this is the right decision to make, but maybe the wrong final outcome to land on. And
maybe it's something that we always say this, so I'm probably shooting myself in the foot on this one, but something again for him to learn from. But how many chances do you need to learn from the previous mistake of what your issues are where you cannot get past a certain level in the postseason? And he's going to have a couple of guys.
He would have to first admit that he has made a mistake to learn from it.
For sure.
That's where my brain was at too.
Sure.
Like we've discussed it on the show already. Like if he had shown some sort of self-awareness or reflection in the months since he was fired from the Sixers, we could sit here and say, oh, this is like new and improved Doc 2.0, or maybe Doc 1.5. 2.0 might be a little generous at this stage of his career. But we could sit here and, Devon, you and I and Derek could say, okay, like he's a new man. He learned from this and he's turning over a new leaf. There's been none of that.
Yeah. Yep. He's a guy that's already been talked about or named during the top 75. They named the top coaches of all time. He's one of them. So he's one who really relies on stuff like that where
I'll give him this. He's definitely a top 75 coach of all time.
100%. 100%. He has done that, and he has a title. But going in, and he has people who have won a championship, who was driven the way that Giannis is, the way that he's driven. You have a different player in Damian Lillard that you have to figure that part out, not only offensively but defensively, because of how much these guys have talked about. The numbers with their defense is just terrible right now. So he still has work to do.
Yeah.
And his staff putting that together. Prunty, I was talking to someone yesterday and said, Prunty is one of his guys. So you're curious of how, then you see reports of he was helping Adrian Griffin with certain things and FaceTiming him with how certain things need to go, and all of a sudden he said his job is his now. But Joe Prunty is one of his guys. Does he stick around? Does Dave Yeager come in and help things out there? But we already know who he is. He's a very good coach that can certainly come in, and maybe, just maybe, the talent on that team could overcome some of the stuff that we've seen in the past that are the mistakes, because we've seen how Giannis has gotten past certain things. When we talk about Budenholzer in the past, and there were some things that Budenholzer even did during their championship run where he wasn't all that great. And Giannis was Giannis, and that was a banged-up Giannis. And you had Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton playing at a very high level during that run to that championship in 2021. Giannis is still that same type of player. Some things he's done this season where you kind of look at him and say, I don't know, but he is still that. And Doc Rivers is going to come in there and he's going to do a decent job of changing. And to your point, Derek, Adrian Griffin was the wrong one. You tweeted something out about one of the, the SB Nation, the Brew Hoop guys, and I went back and read the article from the start of the season where they were talking about, hey, yes, they needed to probably make a change.
Get rid of this guy.
But he was the wrong one to come in here and do it. So whenever you do it, you do it. And it was the question that you asked yesterday. What's the first thing you thought? They should have done this a long time ago, and they finally did it, and now they have potentially, it looks like it's going to be Doc Rivers.
Do you realize that if he coaches the rest of this year and next, he will in all likelihood end up with the second most wins in NBA history as a coach?
It's crazy.
It's because he's about 59 behind Popovich, and Popovich, depending on how the Spurs do, might still be ahead at the end of next year. But they got a little bit of rebuild ahead of him, and he's 60 behind Pat Riley.
Yeah. Well, look, Harrison G says this is our last comment right here. Respectfully, I think y'all are giving Doc a lot of credit. A lot of credit. He's a good coach. He has warts, but he's a good coach.
He's good and is better than who they have.
Right.
But
I'm not even saying he's a good coach. I'm saying he's better than Adrian Griffin. I think that was
a low bar to clear.
Complete shambles there, and he was a wrong pick for that franchise at that stage of their life cycle. I think we all understand his warts in the playoffs. I don't think any of us are disregarding that. And to Kyle's point, he just said he didn't fear the Bucks. Think about that. A team with Giannis and Dame, he just said they don't fear him in the playoffs. I probably wouldn't go that hard. I look at everything in percentages. Like if they lined up now, I'd probably say, maybe the Sixers have a 60% chance of winning the series. 40% things happen every day and scare the living shit out of me. But I agree that I think the Sixers would have the coaching advantage in that series.
But you don't think he's a good coach?
He's probably he's a good regular season coach, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what we're talking about right now. We've seen the Bucks perform in the postseason, but for right now, for them to do whatever they need to do to get there, he's a good coach.
Yeah, and I think coaching today is so much tougher than it was 20 years ago. Like I think the league is so well scouted and the tactics are so tough, so advanced, and the shooting places such an emphasis on being adaptable defensively that I think historically he is a good coach, even if right now, like people regard him as a top 14 coach. I think he's probably about 14th in the league right now. So is he a competent coach? Is he an average coach? Probably. I'm not sure I'd rate him as a top 10 coach in the league right now. So there's a real wide variety of opinions on Doc. But also, we also got a up close and personal look at in the last 3 years. That could be tainting our opinion a little bit. That being said, I don't think we're that far off.
And here's also what I would say. Even if we were to all agree, like we bring Derek along and say, we all think he's a good coach. Whatever the semantics are.
Anywhere from competent to good.
Yeah, somewhere in that. Even if we were all in agreement on that. I think, and I said this the moment that they made the Dame Lillard trade, and Derek didn't dismiss it. I think he was a little more in on the offense as I was thinking about this. I just don't think they have the defensive personnel anymore. Like they have two great building blocks in Giannis and Brook Lopez as a drop defender, rim protector. But Dame Lillard is one of the single worst defenders in the league for various reasons. They are playing a lot of guys in that rotation who are not good defenders and are not going to become good defenders just because they change coaches. Now,
that being said, you shouldn't be hedging and blitzing.
Correct.
Like, you should be trying to defend a small space, not a large space.
Yes, it's all about, like, you can have bad defenders and put those bad defenders in better positions to succeed, right? Like, same thing on the other side of the ball.
Right.
PJ Tucker is not a super valuable offensive player, but for a long time, he carved out a productive role because he had one thing he could do well, and you put him next to guys and in lineups and in spots that he could succeed in. And so Doc will do some of that. He will, make the warts less meaningful for some of these guys. But if you're talking about, you get into a playoff series and you're Nick Nurse, you're Joe Mazzulla, you're Eric Spoelstra, whoever it is that's going to be coaching against Doc and the Bucks, they will point at 3/4 of Milwaukee's rotation and say, we can hunt that guy until they can't play him anymore. And even they're never going to take Dame off the floor, right? Like it'll never get to that point. I would guarantee that. But you can point at Dame Lillard, who's one of their two most important players, as an opposing coach, opposing team, and say, if we get a switch on him, I feel like 75% confident our guy is going to go by him, go through him, draw a foul, or shoot over him and score. That's how much of a terrible defender that he is. So even if we were in unison, Doc is a difference maker, and none of us are saying that, they have real flaws at the personnel level. They're putting smoke out there through Chris Haynes, they're interested in DeJounte Murray. Yeah, I bet they are interested in good players because they don't have enough of them. So that is the underlying thing with Milwaukee too. This is an important thing that they did to get rid of Griffin, who I think most people who follow the NBA would agree was not suited for that job, and they did a smart thing to get rid of him. Whether that's actually a meaningful difference to help them get closer to a title, that I'm not willing to say.
And to your point of is Doc a good coach or not, I think he is a very good. I don't want to say it's
I didn't even bring up Malik Beasley, by the way. He's another terrible defender.
But
when I say regular season coach, I almost don't even want to say that dismissively. What I mean is I think he sets a very, very good base level scheme to both make use of your stars and to win games. And then at some point in the postseason, teams adjust. They throw out stuff they haven't shown all season, and I don't think he adapts that well. So very good in terms of setting your base schemes, tough to adjust. In today's NBA, I think that becomes like people have a wide range of opinions on that. But with the Bucks, they have so many people that you can exploit. He has to be able to adapt in the playoffs. That's why I don't really think this fit is going to work. But it's probably better than Griffin, just probably not as good as maybe the best option they could have gotten at this time.
And like even on the defensive side of the ball too, look at how Nick Nurse has attacked this season for the Sixers, for example. Like they played pretty similar in most games throughout the year. And then there was like a week and a half where it was Tobias Harris is going to defend every big man, and they used the big as the roamer. And that was not even just Joel Embiid. That was Paul Reed defending in the Kings game as Tobias is defending Domantas Sabonis, and just installing that in a shoot around and saying, we're just going to do this today. Like, we haven't worked on it all year. We're going to do that. And that's not Doc. Like, Doc wants to build consistent habits, and there is value in that. You will win a lot of regular season games by doing that. There's a reason he's won 50-plus games a ton of times. Some of that is talent, but some of that is Doc knows if it ain't broke, don't fix it. He taught that to Joel, and Joel loves that principle now. But there comes a time when the rubber meets the road, and as I have said 15 times, I feel like in the last few weeks, you get to the playoffs, everybody's plan A, and most of the time plan B gets taken away on both an individual and a group level. So how quickly can you think of another plan and adapt to that new reality so that they have to adjust back to you? And Doc has never really proven that he can do that on a consistent basis.
And just to be clear, as I call him a good coach, that's just because I think he's a good coach. Not one of my favorites to watch around the league. Again, when he became available from leaving the Clippers, I didn't want the Sixers to hire him. I did not. I gave him credit when he did certain things during the regular season. I even felt at times, even in the Toronto series when they played against the Raptors, what was that, in 2022? Was that? No, 2021, right? 21 when they played the Raptors in the postseason?
It was 2022.
No, 22. You were right. That was the
first
Heat
round.
year, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought he outcoached Nurse in that one. I thought he did a good job. I did. But it doesn't mean that I think he's a championship winning coach anymore, because he hasn't done it in so many years. And to you guys' points, there's so many things that he does poorly where you look at him and you say, yeah, I am not worried from the Sixers point, because now things have changed where I like Nurse that much, where I think Nurse will outcoach him for what we have seen so far from Nick Nurse and the Sixers on the Sixers sideline coaching these guys up. So it's going to be an interesting development overall to see how it all plays out. We'll talk about what these guys are going to fare, how they're going to fare against one another, because they're in the top three. Things look pretty good right now with Boston, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia in terms of the record stuff. Where things go, 42 games in the books for the Sixers. Where do they fare in the Eastern Conference? And we're going to get to that in just a minute.
Imagine, though, like if we have a second-round playoff and we get to cover Doc again in a playoff series, but your emotional well-being is not tied to his decisions. That will be great. And if you want to be in the building for when that happens, start saving up some money now. In order to do that,
what a segue.
Maybe start using Rocket Money. We all want to make sure that you're getting the most out of your money and that you're not wasting money on unnecessary subscriptions. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills. You can see all of your subscriptions in one place, and if you see something you don't want, you can cancel it with a tap, and you never have to get on the phone with customer service. They'll even try to get you a refund for the last couple of months of wasted money and negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year, with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/PHLY. It's rocketmoney.com/PHLY. rocketmoney.com/PHLY.
And with that money that you save, you want to go to that game. Maybe when the Sixers do come back to town after their road trip, a couple of games on the road, and you want to check them out back here in South Philadelphia, have to send you to our good friends from Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful at all. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. We're going to do our team theater visit got Rich. We pulled Rich in there on that one, talking to him on Monday night. He's probably going to tag along and go to the theater with us. So, yeah, we got everybody in.
Look at that.
Yeah, look at that. So with killer deals on those last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun that you'll have. Lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, as well images of the seat view so you don't have a view where you're looking right into a big block of whatever that's in front of you because you can't see from that angle. It lets you know exactly where you're going to be. Easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're all set. It's the fastest growing ticket app in the country for a reason. Tickets are sent directly to your phone like I have on mine, so you never have to dig through your email whatsoever. Tickets also make for great birthday gifts, of course, around the holiday. If you did it and you listened to us, you made sure you took care of your loved ones. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code PHLY for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
I want to quick, before we go back to the Sixers, I do see some people talking about it, that the Eagles are supposed to be having their press conference with Sirianni and Howie Roseman right now.
Are they late?
And the reporters are saying, who are there, that Sirianni and Howie are currently in a meeting and the presser is delayed. It's like, you couldn't have had the fucking meeting another time? Like, you had, a week and a half since you lost this game to get together and chat about this?
Especially because if you delay this press conference, people are going to speculate. Like, what are you doing? Yes.
The last time it happened this way, Peterson was not happy with that discussion, and he left, or mutual parting of ways.
There's never a mutual parting of ways.
how they framed it was mutual parting of ways.
That's like when people end a relationship and it's like, oh yeah, we both decided we were done with this.
Conscious
at the same exact time.
Nonsense,
Yeah.
But that was a week later too, wasn't it? About a week and a half later with the Peterson thing, where he wouldn't.
Everything about this Eagles situation is just so bizarre to me. That's like both coordinators stink, but now they are having to target guys who either failed miserably as coordinators or are retread head coach types who would never get poached again. Like, no disrespect to the Frank Reichs and the Ron Riveras of the world, who might actually help them, but the whole thing is just, anyway. I don't want to go on a whole tangent on it, but it has irritated me for the last week and a half after watching that slop against Tampa.
Come on, man. And they had it set up right too. I mean, look, Detroit was Detroit, and Detroit is fun. I actually want to see Detroit advance, but Green Bay almost knocking off San Francisco. Things could have worked out differently. I know. Let's get back to.
Also, there was some pushback on, and I agree with the chatters on this one. Pushback on Devon saying that Doc outcoached Nurse in 22. I think it's probably more likely that he just had an overwhelming talent advantage.
The other had Pascal Siakam.
That Raptors team. In fairness to Devon and to anybody else who would make that claim, I remember going into that series that the Raptors were a very sexy upset pick. Like, they were they're going to scare Philly. And I was like, have you guys watched the Raptors play basketball basically at all this year? Because they are the epitome of a not scary playoff team. Just can't score in the half court, can't stop Joel Embiid. And that played out even if they made it a little messy in the end.
Well, to defend myself, because I will, going into that, to your point, I did some Toronto radio before the series, and they were like, yeah, to your point, sexy pick. They can knock off the Sixers. And I'm like, guys, I like Nurse, and I think if they win, it'll be more because of Nurse, and what he has on that roster is not enough. And I agree with you guys that the talent level was so different. And I told them, I was like, 5, maybe 6 it will get to, but I didn't even expect it to get to the 6 the way it did in that series. But of course, Nick Nurse made some good adjustments, and Sixers do Sixers things, and he found a way to lose a couple of those games. But I thought that coming in, the one advantage that Toronto did have was Nick Nurse.
Yeah.
And once the series played out that way, and yes, Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid, and the talent that the Sixers had, I thought Doc Rivers did nice things in that series. So That's fine. Everybody, you guys can tell
Wow,
me
the
that.
Doc Rivers apologist over here.
Yeah, the
Jeez.
tour is going on, even as he leaves. Yeah, but I thought that he did some good things in that series. And then when we got to the next series against the Miami Heat, of course, Embiid didn't play the first 2 games, but after that, Spoelstra was just, Spoelstra and did those things. So yeah, I defend myself. I said it, and I'll say it again.
I will say 2 other things to finish up sort of the Doc portion of the show. This was from Mark Stein. Said league sources say now that that Giannis's desire to play for Griffin is better described as a determination to play for someone other than Nick Nurse. I don't entirely know what Giannis's problem with Nick Nurse was, but this was something that Nick withdrew his name from consideration for that job. A lot of people speculated at the time it's because he wasn't going to get it. Certainly, this would add a little bit to that. Just something interesting that came up, and frankly, we mentioned this yesterday. It's great when your star doesn't sort of force coaching decisions or roster decisions because that was a huge misstep for them. Also, just want to say this was from Shams.
Okay, I was going to say, if you didn't get to it, I'm still going to get to it.
I mean, if you have any other comments on the Mark Stein one, but I think this is probably the more explosive one. Shams says that league sources say Doc Rivers began to serve as an informal consultant to Griffin at the behest of the Bucks. 1 month later, he is now a coach. You can't, and we got some firsthand experience with this. You can't put somebody in an advisory role who could benefit from the failure of the person he's advising. You can't put someone in place who can get either their
who
son
very
hired
clearly
or
wants
could
to
take
coach
the job.
again.
Right?
Yeah.
This was part of the reason that you get enough opportunities to get what could be the second most wins in NBA history is to be a politician, to put yourself in place to get those jobs, to act as an informal consultant. Again, at the behest of the Bucks. So it wasn't like Griffin was like, hey, can you come in here and help me out? No, the Bucks brought him in to advise Griffin, and then he got his job after he was fired. Really, really slimy way to go about getting that job. And I don't know. He might have given great advice. We don't know that. He might not have even wanted the job, although I'm guessing he probably did. But it's just the optics of it.
What makes you say that when he got hired in less than 48 hours?
I'm just trying to cover my ass. That's all. The optics of it are a disaster.
Listen, man, here's my biggest problem with it. Doc would probably be the first guy to tell you the importance of the coaching fraternity and how small a circle it is and treating people right and like won't criticize his peers and oppressor. And to take it an even step further, he would tell you, now this problem has been somewhat corrected in recent years. He would tell you how tough it's been for black coaches to get opportunities in the NBA relative to the amount of white coaches that are in the league, and he has faced some of those problems in the past. And then he's undermining a first-year black head coach who had, based on reporting, had 13 different interviews prior to the 14th interview he did to get the Bucks job. Like, this is a guy who has been trying, like, whatever we say about the coaching acumen of Griffin, and all of us are in agreement that the Bucks probably did the right thing. This is somebody that had to grind and grind and grind for a long time to get his one opportunity. And whatever actually happened, to Derek's point, behind the scenes, what it looks like is that Doc Rivers, who has made millions upon millions of dollars, was getting paid by both the Sixers and ESPN at the same time, could very well just like ride off into the sunset, play golf the rest of his career, was with Milwaukee and looks like he was undermining Griffin in some ways and was waiting for the Bucks to do this so that he could sign a contract in basically 24 hours after this guy got fired. Like, to Derek's point, it may just be optics. It may just be weird timing, and the Bucks brought him in. It's not his fault that the Bucks came to him and said, hey, can you help? Can you do this? What is your advice for this? That's not his fault. But he knows as well as anyone how shitty of a look this is. And it's just it's a poor reflection on a guy who, if somebody else had done this to him, we would not hear the end of it for the next 15 to 20 years about how he had been done wrong and it was everyone else's fault but his own. So shame on him for that. I don't appreciate that at all.
Yeah, no, it's if you're going to bring someone in, especially an experienced coach who clearly wants to coach, as an advisor, it has to be known right from the get-go, you are not qualified. Like, you are not in the running if there was ever a job opportunity. Like, you can't get real impartial advice if the dude can benefit from it. It's real bad.
It really
I don't
rubs me
know
the
how
wrong way.
billionaires haven't figured this out yet. Anyway.
Even just from a PR perspective,
It's wild.
like PR's got to figure that out. Like and I don't know. I have nothing more to say on him. I don't appreciate it at all.
Him in general?
Yeah. Just like that whole
Look,
it's one thing to take a job, right? Like I don't begrudge Doc for wanting to get back in the league. Like whatever you say about him, he wants to be coaching. He enjoys coaching. He would not keep taking these jobs and these opportunities if the money was all that mattered, right? Like he would have had a cushy job at ESPN doing that and just talking about the game, doing his low effort commentary that he's been doing. Wants to do it, and I certainly don't begrudge him for that. I will absolutely begrudge him when he is slimy, when he is a backstabber, and when he's doing shit like this, and that's how it comes off to me.
I mean, look, if you can get money for looking into a camera, putting in a little bit of effort, and getting money for it, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. You just can't backstab a coach.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, he did it. Are we surprised? Honestly, I'm not surprised that he went that direction because we've talked about him a number of times, been around him all these years, and we've seen it. Someone even brought up in the chat a little bit earlier about a few years ago, before he took the job, where Ty Lue was in the conversation to come here to Philadelphia, and he was, of course, talking to Ty Lue about coming to Philadelphia and championing him to come to Philadelphia. And next thing you know, he takes the job. So are we surprised? No. If he likes it, and even though someone else has it, don't get me started. It's like the Steve Harvey and the Bernie Mac thing. Bernie Mac got Oceans. Steve Harvey tried to backstab his buddy.
Shout out to the legend Bernie Mac.
Correct, because it wouldn't have worked, my man. It wouldn't
That's the
have
second
worked.
Bernie Mac reference
I was gonna
in
say,
like
can we
2
get-
weeks, so we're really like an honorary.
This is Bernie Mac podcast, man. Come on. But no, I mean, not surprised at all by this. Not whatsoever, because that's Doc Rivers.
So where are we at now? I guess just looking at this from a mid-season perspective, or
Yeah, we can get to that. You want to talk about?
I guess. Look,
I'm hungry.
I don't know if they have Brooklyn style bagels in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I would imagine it's tough to replicate an East Coast feel and East Coast food in the middle of the country. But we can do that right here in Philadelphia because Bagels & Co. offers those huge Brooklyn style bagels made right here in Philadelphia. I eat bagels several days a week. Bagels & Co. offers an average of around 15 to 20 types of bagels. They rotate seasonally. So that variety, when you're eating bagels as often as I do, is absolutely critical. You got to be able to skip between a few different ones. And they also have some theme bagels around the holidays, Christmas ones that we were missing. I still need to get an update on what they have cooking for the upcoming, maybe Easter, Valentine's Day, whatever. Going to have to keep an eye on that. But if you're a cream cheese guy like I am, regardless of what the theme bagels are, they offer 30 different flavors of cream cheese that rotate all throughout the year. And Bagels & Co. do themed cream cheeses for all the local sports teams, including the Sixers. They will not be making a Doc Rivers themed cream cheese anytime soon. I can guarantee you that. I don't know if it'd be snake flavored, but we'd have to see. Just as important as the variety in their cream cheese is that overall affordability. Bagels & Co. has kept their prices down so that you can be an everyday customer, even as all of us are combating inflation at the grocery store, at the gas pump, all that. You don't have to be someone who just comes in for a weekend splurge. And they offer premium coffee to go with your bagel at a superior price to most national brands and chains. So for the best Brooklyn-style bagels made right here in Philadelphia, head to www.thebagelsandco.com/store-locator to find the closest Bagels & Co. near you.
And I can guarantee that while we speak of Rivers, you won't be getting the Rivers bobblehead either. And you might want to get a Joel Embiid instead because you don't need a Rivers bobblehead in your home. You need a big fella, number 21 for your home team. Make sure you go to FOCO, leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, toys, collectibles, novelty items, and much more. Best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. Going to basketball or hockey game? Yeah, you want to be spiffy and snazzy and show your love for the team? Well, get yourself the new branded friendship bracelets. got my guys here. Got to get the friendship bracelets from Foco.
Hey, I don't
and
know.
Bree.
If we go to the theater together with friendship bracelets, people are going to start asking some questions. I don't know.
Hey, man. Well, if you do want to do that, whether it's hoodies, jackets, beachwear, or even those overalls. I saw some overalls on another team in another city during the playoffs. I was like, they probably got that from Foco because they did. They even tagged Foco in the tweet. There is something for fans for almost every occasion. Foco has hooked PHLY up and provided awesome pieces for our sets. You see the sets there right behind us, right behind Kyle. Foco always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in our description. Of course, for all non-presale items, use the promo code PHLY10 for 10% off. Again, PHLY10 for 10% off.
Which group was the Show You Love Sixers? There's a Lou
That
Will.
was Evan Turner. Was he there?
It was definitely pre-processed.
That was the one
I just
with
don't remember
the
which
three
one.
fingers.
Yeah.
I think that was Lou. Yeah, I think that was Lou.
Lou,
because
Iggy.
he started it. He said,
Did he?
he started that. So that's where that one was branded. Yeah, show you love.
Do we need to show? Well, before we get to any big
Well,
picture stuff, we do have a bunch of super chats.
And then we also have super chats,
Yeah.
and then we have big picture stuff. So sit tight. We might be here for a little while.
And I might have to defend myself again because a string of comments come in like that.
I mean, look,
I'm not defending myself.
You went on a Sixers show and was like, man, that Doc Rivers, he's a good coach.
Good coach.
You should have seen it coming, buddy.
And I'm
You should have
big
seen
on
it coming.
good, great, all that stuff when you use those words.
Yeah.
He said good. I deliberately said good, not great. He's not. I didn't think he was a great coach. I thought he was a good coach. Anyway, I don't care. Whatever.
It's all right, Devon. You're a good host.
Thank you. I'll thrive to be great. I'll thrive to not be the Doc Rivers of this show.
You're definitely not the Doc Rivers of this show. I don't know who is, but that's if you don't know who it is, then maybe it's you. So I'm gonna have to think about that one for a little bit.
All right. Want to get to the injuries first, and then we'll get
Sure.
to the super chats? All right.
So DeAnthony Melton, he's had a lumbar spine stress response. Sixers said that he completed an offloading period and will begin ramping up to return to play. He is traveling on the road trip, but listed as out. He will be reevaluated in a week. So still a little bit ways away, but closer to the next guy we're about to get to. Robert Covington has left knee inflammation. Sixers said he continues to receive treatment to address inflammation and a bone bruise in his knee. He is out and will be reevaluated in 3 to 4 weeks. So Covington, it sounds like, is a good bit away. Melton's still not super close, but at least progressing towards that. But neither were necessarily great updates, I didn't think.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very good chance Robert Covington's played his last game as a Sixer because at this point, one, he was barely in the rotation when he was healthy, right? Like we had seen Nick lean more toward Marcus Morris and some other options at wing spots, which, not to say that I always agree with it, but that's the way he went. So that's where he is in the pecking order. And now that 3 or 4 weeks is putting you past the deadline. So unless he somehow survives, which given that he's got a decent sized expiring contract and be able to match a bunch of different types of deals, I tend to think that his time here might be over. Now, it's premature. We don't know yet. It's going to be right up until the deadline for any move to get made. So that was my first thought.
That being said, even 3 to 4 weeks alone takes us past the deadline, and that's not when he'll return. That's when he'll be reevaluated.
Yeah.
So it could be, even a good case might be, if he's still on the roster in March, you might see him if things go well.
Yeah.
It's a while.
And so not a good sign for him. And look, there have definitely been times where maybe I or we have overestimated Cov and what he can bring to the team. But if you look at some of the things that have happened recently, rebounding, for example, Cov is a good rebounder for his position. So as they've had issues, he might have been able to help out there as a off the bench piece. Or, Marcus Morris has a bad shooting night. You say, sit your ass on the bench and we just bring somebody else in. So just being down an option is not as good as if you had more options. And hopefully Melton is able to play at some point over this next week. I think it's a great sign that he's actually traveling with the team and they're not saying, hey, stay home and rehab and do all that, because that would suggest to you there's no chance that he plays. So cautiously optimistic when it comes to him, but guess we'll find out.
And again, the Sixers don't come back. Their road trip goes through February 1st. So that is more than a week out. They're on the longest road trip of the season. So, yeah, good that he made that trip.
Yeah, and as far as Covington goes, injuries always come out of nowhere. You can't anticipate an injury, but when his took place, it was surprising that he was missing. Okay, he's missing this game. All right, no problem. Then he's missing another week, and now it has turned into what it has turned to, just spiraled to it may go
Big
through
time.
the deadline, and that's a big, especially with his knee, and that's not something that you really want to deal with, and that's why he's not out there, not testing it, and not putting it in harm's way by any means. So. We'll see, man. As you said, that might have been it for him. His run with the Sixers, second time around, might have been it. Might have been it. So to get to some of the super chats here and run some of those, and we'll get to the conversation about where the team stands in the Eastern Conference. Bernard starts us off. Hello, fellas. What's up, Nard? With the Heat getting Scary Terry Rozier, and the Bucks getting Rivers, we need to get some. Like Murray to shore up this lineup due to injuries, Bernard? Well, let's ask the guys.
That's sort of our next segment.
I was going to say one. I'm not sure I'd put getting Terry Rozier and Doc Rivers on the same level. Like, I think Rozier is probably more impactful than just making sure you don't have
a
the guy who's on the floor is a bigger difference maker.
Bernard thinks he's a difference maker. Doc Rivers, look at him. Look at you, Nard.
Well, look, we've talked about Murray quite a bit, and I said over the weekend, I believe it was probably Sunday, maybe Monday, that there's been pushback from, sources, however you want to frame it, that the Sixers are not in on Murray. I am still skeptical of that idea, right? Like, I think based on how this market will probably shake out, I think there will be an opportunity for them if they really wanted to trade for Murray. Where it sits right now, where, Atlanta's asking for multiple firsts and a youngish or like solid starter. So just for frame of reference, let's just say a DeAnthony Melton type player and 2 firsts. I don't want to give up 2 firsts for DeJounte Murray.
Non-starter.
I'm not interested in doing that. If you're telling me I'm paying 1 first, giving up Melton and a contract, expiring contract, so a Marcus Morris or a Robert Covington type, that's a deal I'm in on. That's where, as we talk about, should they go all in? What do they need to do to keep step with Boston and, protect themselves against getting to a playoff series and teams just wall off Tyrese Maxey and they need more ball handling? I'm in on that. But once you get to the point of trading multiple firsts, I don't believe Murray justifies that. And frankly, I don't think the market will dictate that. I think big part of the reason that we hear Murray's name is that Atlanta is trying to get ahead of DeJounte and Rich Paul saying, get me the fuck up out of here, and making it more of and like, that's not to criticize Rich or DeJounte. I'm saying, I think they have handled this fairly quietly up to this point. It's very clear the DeJounte-Trey partnership is not working for a variety of reasons, and Atlanta's trying to get ahead of that. If DeJounte stays with this team through the deadline, I am not so sure that they're going to be quiet about it anymore, and that is the point when value goes completely off the cliff.
To your point, though, on DeJounte and maybe getting ahead of a trade request, I think DeJounte wants to be a point guard. And quite frankly, I think he's much better as a point guard. He is better shooting off the dribble than he is off the catch. He's more comfortable shooting off the dribble than he is off the catch. His playmaking is at least more relevant. The problem in Atlanta is Trey has absolutely no interest playing off ball, doesn't give one shit, doesn't give an effort doing it.
Both ends of the floor, by the way.
Both ends of the ball, but including on offense. Even though he should be a good catch-and-shoot shooter, he just doesn't move. He doesn't give any effort, so they have to run him on ball. And quite frankly, they should. He's a great passing player and an offense unto himself. So the fit there isn't great. Fit might be a little better here in Philly because Maxey can play off ball. He's a willing off ball shooter. He's a willing off ball mover coming off of screens, elite catch and shoot player. So the fit is there. My concern is I want to grow that Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid pairing because I think it can develop into something truly great. I think there's a limited cap on a DeJounte Murray Embiid pick and roll. I'm not sure what the absolute upside of a Maxey Embiid one is. And if Murray wants to have the ball in his hands, he wants to be a point guard, he's most effective as a point guard. To Kyle's point, I'm not giving up 2 first-round picks. I don't even want to give up 1 first-round pick if it is that Clippers pick. I want to keep that one to make sure that you're flexible for a future deal. I'm not going to react. Look, I think Miami got better with the Rozier trade, and I think that was a real upgrade they needed to make. I think Kyle Lowry as a starting point guard was done. They had recently benched him. I just don't think he was effective enough to maintain that role in those minutes. So I think this is important for them, and I think they got it at a pretty good price. But I don't think you react to that by getting a guy who, again, I always go back to, I just don't like the fit of. I don't believe in the off-ball shot. I don't believe in three-point shot in general. I'm not giving up all of the war chest. And for me, two of the first-round picks of the three that you have to trade, that's making yourself too inflexible in the future.
Yeah, 2 firsts, no go.
It's a no-go for me.
It's a no-go. And we've talked about buying into a little bit more on the Murray piece, but after seeing that 2 firsts and they're trying to recoup what they gave up in the first place to give it to San Antonio, that's just a bit too much for that player. As much as we've tried to talk ourselves into it, you just can't do it. So then you just go back to the Bogdanovich conversation and some of these other names that we've discussed, because if that's what they're going to be asking, at least that's the starting point. Like we talked about before coming in. That's where the negotiations begin. We're still a few weeks away from the actual deadline on the 8th. So maybe it'll come down, but we'll see. Two is a no-go, though. 2 is definitely a no-go.
To Kyle's point, though, whenever you hear pushback like this, a lot of it's like there's so much posturing in the media, and if the Hawks are looking to get out in front of it, the Sixers want it to make sure that like they're not, they want to push back to make it seem like the Hawks have to come down in their price. Everything is posturing until we get to February 8th. Just because you hear one thing now doesn't mean that there's no chance. It's just noise.
And there's also, transparently, there's the agent part of it too,
Sure.
right? Like the agents are trying to steer their guys to, it doesn't have to be one specific team, but definitely certain situations
Right.
that they know their client is going to be happy in. And I would say this, I'm almost more confident. I think I wouldn't say equally unlikely. I'm almost more confident in LaVine buying into a role than DeJounte. Like, I think if you brought Zach LaVine here, in terms of the offensive hierarchy, I think you could get him on board easier than DeJounte.
Yep.
Just because, to your point, Derek, and this is absolutely true, I think DeJounte sees himself as a point guard and is better as a point guard and most likely wants to go somewhere where the Lakers makes a lot of sense for him if he's going to move to a team that's trying to win right now, because they're going to move Russell if they trade for him. There is a clear vacuum at that spot. He walks into that job, and that's just a more hand-in-glove fit for him. So I would understand that completely if he feels that way, but if you're the Sixers, that means there has to be a pretty low ceiling on what your offer can be.
Yeah.
I saw a funny one after the Lakers deal. They were talking about Russell teaming up with Trae Young, and someone was saying on social media how good of a pairing that would be in the backcourt. I'm like, really? Okay.
Well, the intel on Atlanta is that everything I've heard and that has been reported publicly is that they don't even want him. That's
Right.
If they were to make a deal with the Lakers, they're flipping him for whatever the hell they can get for him.
Fast.
So,
yeah.
I don't know who that was.
Yeah,
but
and
I
that
don't
was
know
my
if I need to
thing.
hear any more basketball takes from them, I guess.
That was hilarious. I was like, okay, yeah, the good player didn't work if with DeJounte Murray, but you want to bring in D'Angelo Russell and think that that's going to work. What were you going to say?
I don't remember.
Okay, let's
There
get
was
to
a super chat that I think sort of touches on this from Sanj, which says the Sixers starting lineup is plus 34 points per 100 possessions, which he notes is the highest in the 17-year NBA lineup database with a minimum of 200 minutes. I'm going to take his word for it. I haven't verified that. Why change at any cost versus a bench scorer like Bojan?
I would assume he means Bogdan because he's more of the bench scorer type. I
think he's
maybe
talking
they're
Hawks,
both. Yeah,
Bogdanovich.
It
Got
could
his
be
Bogdanovich confused. That's fine. Happens to the best of us.
Look.
Then again, if Bogdan was brought in, I'd probably end up starting him too.
Yeah, that's
I'd put him in the
interesting.
Melton role, I think.
I would.
It's at least worth considering for
Yeah.
sure. But to Sanjay's point, it's sort of the difficult part of this deadline for the team, right? Like we can sit here and say, hey, when they get to the playoffs, stars win, and I'm worried that the responsibilities are being put too firmly in Joel and Tyrese's hands when you just need like a third release valve, like someone who's not to pick on him because he's been very good lately, but someone not Tobias Harris to throw the ball to that they can go create not just for themselves, but create a shot for somebody else. And how do you do that but also not upset the balance that they've struck with the role players, the shooters, the guys who just understand what they're here for. I think generally, like, you can almost always accomplish that by just trading for guys at the right point in their career, right? Like, there are lots of guys who this conversation boils down to how many trials and tribulations have they gone through, and how willing are they to buy in and sacrifice to win. And that normally takes until you go through most of your 20s as a young, talented guy with upside who's one of the most important players on a team. And one day you wake up and you look at yourself in the mirror and say, what am I doing this for? Like, I made all the money. I've gotten a lot of accolades, but how badly do I want to win? And that's the important part going into these deadlines. And even in the off season is finding the guys who maybe they're miscast as a star somewhere else. Maybe they're a role player hiding in plain sight, whatever it is. Finding guys at the exact right moment to pair with. You have the 1A star in Joel. You have the young ascending guy in Tyrese, who, as good as he is, understands it's Joel's team and allows Joel to drive the car and still has his own success. Who is going to fit within that ecosystem? It's a really interesting question this time of year.
To his point on the lineup data, like, I think the lineup data is so strong because you have Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Nick Batum as a perfect fit, Tobias Harris, at least, as a talented player. I don't think it's necessarily like you can't change anything. Like,
right.
Oh, no, you can't change the Anthony Melton because the lineup data is good right now. I think you trust in those four remaining guys, and if you can get another guy who fits alongside of it, you trust that you will be able to integrate a player like that, even if it is someone like Bogdan maybe stepping in over a DeAnthony Melton because you want maybe that gravity or that off-ball shooting or that movement or that secondary creation. I think you would have faith in that carrying over because of the four guys who are remaining. So I think you can go up there, but I think it does speak a little bit, like when we talk about Murray, part of it is I don't necessarily want to upset the Embiid-Maxey dynamic, and I think Murray has a chance to do that. That's part of the reason, along with the fact that he's cheaper, both in terms of his contract and his cost to acquire, that I would prioritize someone like Bogdan over Murray, even though Murray might be the better player. I think Bogdan's a cheaper player, the player you can acquire more cheaply and who would be a better, more natural fit alongside what you already have.
All right.
Just go get Bogdanovich and Caruso, and let's go.
Just be done with
the
it.
Playoffs.
Yeah.
Just be done with it. Jay says, Doc, talking about Doc Rivers, trash truck juice. Sixers in 5. Go get me Brogdon. Thank you, Jay. Good to see you, man.
Also
really
says,
appreciate
Devon won't say it. Devon the GOAT with 3 GOAT emojis.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. But thank you, Jay.
I will say it. I knew you wouldn't say it, but I will.
Jay's a good guy from my former days, and glad to have you here with us, Jay. Make sure 5 days a week, hang out with the guys. Post game as well.
Now, to be clear, that is just normal Jay, not like Jay of the Jungle.
No,
this
that's
is
normal
Jay.
Jay.
Yeah.
Jay was always
just
Jay.
No, not normal Jay, because he's probably still an exceptional Jay. He's
yeah.
just not a Jay of the Jungle.
Yeah, Jay is exceptional Jay, and Jay was
Jay like Men in
Long
Black
time.
Jay,
Yeah.
or I don't.
right.
Or no, they just go by the initial, right? That's just the letter.
Letter
That's not
J.
the J-A-Y.
Letter J. But thank you, Jay. Doc is trash truck juice, and Sixers
Might
and
have to
5
think
against
about
the
a
Bucks.
shirt for PHLY Locker centered around trash truck juice. I don't know.
Sixers and 5 against the Bucks, Jay says. We appreciate that. Harrison G jumps in. Kyle, can you give some names that haven't been shot down by the Sixers? I'm desperate.
Well, not just me.
For the trade
certainly
slop.
you guys have your
Trade
connections
slop.
as well. Well, I'll tell you who they
Thank
have
you,
shot
Harrison.
down so far. Siakam, who already got moved. Levine, who probably not getting moved. Murray, but I that's the one that, as I just said, I'm a little flexible on that
Throwing
one.
cold water on Bruce Brown.
Bruce Brown is another one.
But
that
again,
they-
I wouldn't say that's shot down. It's more like cold water.
Yeah, I think
Whatever that means.
between current price and interest level from contenders, other contenders, I should say, and the piece that we talked about previously that don't trust him to shoot, which is more important on a Joel Embiid-centric team than a lot of other teams. I think they're cooler on him than perhaps the marketplace is. So those are the guys I can tell you no on. In terms of who they might be in on, they are doing a good job of disguising whatever it is they want. I think if we're talking about general needs, I think they believe they need maybe a different option at the big spot. It's something I've been talking about for months, even as Mo Bamba had some good games, Paul Reed. I do think that perhaps there is belief in the building that a big-bodied center. Now that could be accomplished perhaps with a buyout, or that's not necessarily a trade piece. So that's something I keep an eye on. I'm less concerned, and I think the Sixers probably feel the same way about the backup ball handler stuff. You heard names like DeLon Wright thrown around at different points, so that'd be somebody, a very low-cost option to potentially bring in here. But if you guys are asking me for who are the big fish that are out there,
shoot
that
down
they're
Lowry,
in on,
Markkanen too.
Well, do you know who they haven't thrown any cold water on?
Look at that! Look at that!
I did bring that in, folks. I did because.
I mean, to be clear, I don't think Kyle and I have asked them if they're in on Mikal Bridges because there's an assumption that everyone would be. But I just want to point out the jersey.
Because our PHLY Twitter account said,
we're all trying to find the guy who sent that one.
Time to do some work and some tampering. And I said, you know what? I might have to just wear my jersey or bring it. So I decided not to wear it. I just brought one of my jerseys in. And he had a good game last night. They lost. And it was frustrating as to the point of the whole tweet where he was talking about how, and we've seen it here, Knick fans coming into town, taking over the arena.
Give Knick fans grief for a lot of things, but they show up and they are loud.
It was bad. Yeah. It was bad. If you were watching that game last night, it was bad to hear anytime the Knicks did anything. It was bad. So I did bring my jersey in for that.
But so with Mikal or guys like Markkanen or like the higher caliber guys. So like we've spent a lot of time talking about on this show, but we've always set it up as it's not really realistic for them to try and go get them. The reason that I think Derek is correct to constantly be like, yeah, I like this guy, but I'm not paying XYZ for him, is because if those opportunities become available, if Mikal plays more games in Brooklyn that Knicks fans overrun and your cousin is just like, I'm sick of this shit, you won't have any opportunity to get in the mix for him if you've blown 2 first-round picks on a trade for an imperfect guy like a Murray, or if you've given up assets to go get Zach LaVine and then you have his contract attached to the franchise for the next 3-4 years. Like the opportunity cost is an important thing to consider when you're talking about moving for these guys. Now, I get the other side of it too, right? Like my belief looking at Joel Embiid, the way he's playing right now, is this team should go all in on him. You are, like, I know we say this every year, and it's like brought it up the other day. Every year he gets better. You're only going to have so many of these types of seasons, and they have the ammo. They have the expiring contracts that those contracts will just come off the books, and somebody's going to have to get paid that money, and the cap space will be gone as soon as July rolls around. So there's some urgency to get something done. I think there's a great argument to be made to go for it and go for it hard. That just doesn't necessarily mean, trading for Murray or LaVine or whoever. It might mean get a couple of smaller players and then you still have options later.
I struggle with this so much because what Kyle said is absolutely true. You don't know how many times Joel Embiid is going to be able to average 35 points per game on a 65% true shooting. It just doesn't,
probably never again.
It not only doesn't happen every year, it's literally never happened in the history of the sport. You've got these two, Maxey improving to the point where he can be a legitimate running mate. You've only got a couple-year window where these two things might overlap. You've got to be aggressive. That being said, in the summer, particularly at the draft, you can have 5 first-round picks to trade. If somebody, maybe Devon's not able to get this done here in the next couple of weeks, but maybe a slow drip over the next couple of months, he can get an ask out in June. Maybe somebody else like Markkanen asks out, what have you. The Sixers will have the ammunition to go really big game hunting next June and next July, not because of I think people look at the cap space and who's available. That's not really what you're hunting. You're hunting trades. Having 5 first-round picks to add to Embiid and Maxey, you could see a star going like, get me out of here and get me to Philly. That is certainly not impossible, and you'd have the ammunition to trade for it, but you would potentially not waste, because they can contend right now, or at least, well, we'll get into that, or at least we were going to, and we're into it. They can contend with almost anyone in the East right now as is, but you're limiting your upside by trying to keep that open. And if nobody becomes available, then you go, oh shit, like, what is my gain here? But conceding that right now and taking yourself out of the running for the next star to become available is tough. It would be tough to do.
Ash said I would be in the Sixers Hall of Fame effective immediately if I got it done. Thank you, Ash. I appreciate it.
We don't have the power to induct you, but we can make some calls and see what would happen on that.
All right, we have 2 more to get to. Real Time says, does the media protect Giannis' coach killer rep? Budenholzer and now what just happened with Griffin.
So, I think people need to stop. There's no, collective media. Certainly there's no, we've got to protect Giannis. Do they make a big enough deal of it? I don't know. I think...
He's very likable, Giannis.
He's likable until he's not.
Until he's not. But he has been that way until he's not. As of late, where a lot of people are starting to, with the ladder thing, we were talking about earlier in the year with the stuff that he was doing.
Giannis versus the ladder.
Giannis versus the ladder.
One of the great battles in Philadelphia history. Yeah.
He was the darling in right through that championship run. Certainly the last year, I think, has caused some people to come into question with that. I do think a lot of people are going to look at this and the role he had in Bud and the role he had in bringing in Griffin. I think that'll impact his how he's viewed throughout the league. I don't know if they will necessarily...
If he doesn't win, it will. Yeah.
And will they look at him as a coach killer? I don't know. But I think there's a lot more scrutiny now. Mm-hmm. A lot more.
There's also... So there are several factors here, right? One, even though he's a megastar, he plays in Milwaukee. And, people just don't care about the Milwaukee Bucks the way they care about some of the other teams. You can say that that's wrong and you can whatever, but that's just the truth. If, for example, Nikola Jokic played for the Lakers, people would care about Nikola Jokic more than they do him playing for the Nuggets. That is how sports and media and the world kind of works. It's not to say it's right or wrong. That's just how it goes. So there's some of that where he's never going to be scrutinized at the same level of the major East Coast market teams, guys on the Lakers, guys like that, guys on the Celtics, whatever, because all the history and whatever won't happen. But if he wins, nobody gives a shit anyway, right? Winning solves everything. The whole reason, if we flip it around and we talk about Joel Embiid, the only reason that people are scrutinizing him and saying, oh, he's a stat patter, he missed this game, he missed that game, is because in the games that they really care about, he has not been good enough. His teams have not been good enough. And we can sit here and give him XYZ reason. He hurt this, he hurt his knee, he hurt his hand, he broke his face. Those are all justifiable excuses. Nobody wants to hear them. Eventually, at the end of the day, I try to tell people this all the time. As time passes, as a pro athlete, as a person of note, all you are eventually is what it says on a Wikipedia page. It is the numbers. It is whether you won. It is whether you made an all-star team. It is whether you made All-NBA, won an MVP, whatever it is. And so we can sit here with nuance and say, Giannis has done this, Giannis has done that, Giannis does this. At the end of the day, with Doc Rivers and Dame Lillard and whoever else might come through, if Giannis wins titles, Giannis continues to rack up all NBA, all MVPs, whatever. Nobody gives a fuck if he did kill coaches, if he was ruthless, if he backstabbed somebody, if he's playing politics behind the scenes. Winning wipes away everything. That's just how it works.
You know who was a ruthless MFer? Michael Jordan.
Correct.
Kobe Bryant.
Correct.
A lot of winners in that group. But you have to win if you're going to act like that. Otherwise, people will get on you.
So to Real Time's point, I absolutely am keeping an eye on what Giannis has done, the way his reputation has changed. But nobody's going to give a shit if he wins. Yep. That's the bottom line.
Not at all. Ash, my trade deadline stakes are, does X player strike fear in the Celtics / Heat, leaving them wide open as teams are going to sell out versus Joel? What are your thoughts, Derek?
Yeah, I want gravity at every position. Everyone. Gravity and decision making. I want that more than I want points per game, talent, shot creation. I want people who you are deadly afraid of leaving open and people who can make a good decision if you overextend and close out or just need to swing the ball, make the connective pass. I want quick decision making and volume 3-point shooting and off-ball gravity 100%.
Yes, with the add-on that I want guys who are, you can't just trade for, and I don't think you're making this point, Derek, but just to be clear, you can't trade for guys who are great shooters that are bozos on the other end of the floor.
Sure.
Like just competent.
You need more than Landry Shamet. Sure. Yes. That's
competent
all I'm talking
two-way play is the absolute floor for anybody who's being brought in here.
100%.
So Ash, I think we're in lockstep on that.
That being
one.
said, like when you have gravity of like a JJ Redick, I think you can put JJ on the floor because his team defense is at least sound enough. He knows what he's doing, and his offensive gravity is so valuable. I'm okay leaning a little towards that side, but it can't be. I mean, like the gravity has to be very legit, and the defensive fundamentals have to at least be sound.
Not the slumped shoulders of Seth Curry.
Yes.
Yeah. Drive me nuts.
In fairness to him,
It drove me nuts,
Kevin
man.
Herter hit some tough shots in that game.
It wasn't
7.
just that game 7. It was just the entire
Well,
season. I give him
correct.
credit because he's a fantastic shooter. But my goodness, man, the when you talk about body language, we just look. It was always like this, and it
He's
was
kind
like,
of a weird dude to cover
Yeah,
too. By the way,
man.
like his brother is pretty gregarious and like one of the faces of the
Goodness
league for
gracious.
good reason. And Seth was a little prickly, honestly. Didn't dislike him as a person, but just
he was.
had a little bit of a tude.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
No other way to put it.
Final one, Bill. So sounds like the season is a punt. No, he didn't say that. So who do you think the 76ers will try to target next season with 5 first-round picks and 6 second-round picks? There's your answer right there from Derek
The
Bodner.
hometown hero.
There's your answer, Bill.
No, I mean it's whoever becomes available and asks out. It's hard to predict, and that's why this
And we're
conversation.
not saying that he's
Yeah. That was
asking
a
out.
joke.
No,
That was
that's
a
a joke. He wasn't saying that.
Although, like, we're gonna say it off air. We're gonna try to at least get Devon to say it. To
He'll
someone
be
off
here
air.
next Saturday, not in the building. Next
PHLY
Saturday.
Sixers asked Devon to tamper. You know?
That being
Is
said,
that the
like,
headline?
that's why this conversation is so tough because we have no idea. It's really which star becomes disgruntled and would have an interest coming to Philly. It's hard to predict that.
Why
But-
did Thibault foul on that 3? I have no
No
clue,
idea.
RC. No clue.
Well,
Kevin Herter, left side of the floor, right there.
And to that point about we don't know, I just like there is a belief around the league that once June hits and some of these teams, specifically some of these owners, are looking at the tax bills, management's looking at the downward pressure on we can't sign this guy, we can't make this trade. Our options are shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. There is some logic around the league and discussions with people, not just with the Sixers, all over the league, that it could get wild this summer and in parts of this summer. Again, you have to balance that, as all of us have said, against the responsibility that you have with Joel Embiid at this level to put a title team on the floor. I think that the good thing is right now, based on not to overdo the net rating and all that stuff, like everything says with their lineup together and healthy, they are an elite basketball team. So that gives them some solidity here that they could justify if they push off a multiple first-round picks trade into the future. But it is a really dangerous line to walk when you might have the best chance. Milwaukee's vulnerable. They look like Boston is extremely good, deserves to be the favorite in the East. But first game they played in this season, it certainly showed that the Sixers can hang with them. So there is not the 73-9 Warriors out there. There is not the LeBron James-led juggernaut out there. There is no runaway favorite to me right now, even if Boston deserves the favorite status in the East. So you have to split the difference in a lot of ways, and that is really tough. I do not envy the job that Darryl and the rest of the front office have ahead of them.
I'll take his job.
Well, I'll take the paycheck.
The pay's a little better, and you get to run a team. There are some tough decisions, though.
Oh, man. Well, a lot of fun from everybody here today, an extended one. We'll be back tomorrow when the Sixers take on the Indiana Pacers in Indiana, the new-look Pacers with Pascal Siakam. Tyrese Halliburton, was he out last night? He didn't play in that game last night.
He did not play,
But
yeah.
he played in the game before. We'll see if he's back for the Sixers tomorrow night. And we'll have post-game coverage for you. All 3 of us will be here on the feed, so make sure you tell a friend and tell the other friend and all the other friends to make sure you tap in. And check us out here on the PHLY. You want to say goodbye to a lot of people?
I do want to say goodbye. We had so many super chats.
It's not goodbye. It's see you later.
and-
See you later. Yeah.
Yeah, see you
That's a better
tomorrow.
way of putting it. Thank you, as always, everybody, for showing up today for us, even with the Eagles in the midst of a ridiculous press conference. And
We started
I saw
getting updates.
Vic Fangio got
Yeah.
fired in Miami. He's now the
coming
front
home.
runner for DC, and you guys still stayed here with us. I love y'all for that. So I got to shout out my guys and gals, Eugene Ross, R.C. Burrows, Dave, Ash,
What up,
Miles, Brian Knight, Liam Stevens, Randy Rubert, Corey, my guy Will, I know was here in the beginning and
was?
specifically said hello.
What up, Will?
Shout out to Will. Derek Bodner, I can't believe they let that guy in here every day. Kane, Furious, Sam S. Let's see, John Dickerson. I know we had Real Time. I know we had Bernard. I know we had Just Jay, J-A-Y.
What up, Jay?
Thank you for being with us. We have Bill. I'll give Ash another shout out because he also hit us with a super chat today. Bootzilla, Kenneth Adams. I know I saw my guy Al, the 2-minute warning here
What up,
today.
Very early.
Because
Yes.
Al on Twitter yesterday, and most of you could take notes from Al, actually apologized for not being here. That is a true diehard right there. We love you, Al.
He said sorry.
I think I saw Hypothetical Man. I see James Meehan. Marty Bones. There's so many of you
What
guys.
up, Bones?
Devon Givens. What are you? Not two of you are in the chat. What is going on? Anyway, if you haven't already, guys, hit that subscribe button on the way out. If you hit the bell icon, that will give you notifications each and every time we go live. And if you hit the thumbs up button, it will guarantee you that Doc Rivers never becomes the Sixers head coach again. So
will not.
make sure you do that on the way
You
out.
know why.
We will see you tomorrow night.
We all silly like the mayor.